Mm. Hey there, everybody. How's it going? I'm Jim Davis. This is WebDM, and I'm currently looking at the Unearthed Arcana 2022 Character Origins by Jeremy Crawford with Christopher Perkins and Ray Winninger playtest document for the new One D&D. If you missed the announcement earlier, I'll kind of give a recap of what I caught of it. But the big news is that the first of what's coming down the pipe in 2024, the first of those playtest documents just dropped. And so, yeah, we're going to go through it live and just see how far we get. We're going to take a journey together into the future of what will be the next generation of Dungeons and Dragons. And I hope that we'll just have a great time and make friends and all that other kind of whatever on the way. So we're going to hang out. And yeah, if you're interested in more of our thoughts on what's coming down the pipe for Dungeons and Dragons, what we would love to see if we were in control of this game of ours, you can head on over to our Patreon and check out our podcast there. We've just started talking about how we would revamp some of the spell lists for the full casters in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, what's missing, what's not. So go and check those episodes out, as well as our backlog of nearly 255 podcast episodes. So go and check that out over on the Patreon. And yeah, also you can help us out right now in this instant, not in the future, not a link away, nothing like that, by clicking the like button on this video right here on YouTube with your tab open, whatever you got. As long as you're not driving, hit that like button and help us work this algorithm. And yes, now that that's over with, if you missed the announcement, Dungeons and Dragons has a lot of exciting news coming up. The Wizards Presents video earlier today covered a lot of that, as well as some Magic the Gathering stuff that I think is kind of interesting. I'm like, oh, I might get some of those packs. But for Dungeons and Dragons, the big news was what they're calling One D&D, which is their code word for the next generation of Dungeons and Dragons. If you remember way back in the D&D Next, there, which I really wasn't paying attention to, but I remember one of the things they said was that they wanted this edition of D&D to be an evergreen edition. That this was something, the addition to unite the schismatic factions of the edition wars. It was the addition to find a way to synthesize old school D&D with new school play, to have the classic tropes that have been in Dungeons and Dragons for generations, as well as accommodate all the new fantasy tropes that new players want to see, the new adventures they want to have, and the kinds of characters they want to create. That this could be a big tent edition that is Dungeons and Dragons. Like, we can stop calling it 5e. It's just Dungeons and Dragons, right? And so seeing them reaffirm that like 10 years later or something, 8 years later, whatever, is really kind of cool, because it's a whole different team of developers and designers that are working on it. But they recognize, that this version of Dungeons and Dragons is captured lightning in a bottle and really is a D&D for all seasons. Is it the perfect game? No, right? But it's still Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I run a by the player's handbook campaign, and like, it still feels like D&D, right? Even though there's little nitpicky things. I wish armor worked like this. I wish there wasn't as many buttons to push on a character sheet or whatever, but the players don't care. They like those things. It engages them, and they have a good time with it. And the experience of it still feels like playing D&D. So it's exciting to see what's down the pipe. There's a whole bunch of stuff. They released the book schedule for next year. It includes things like the heist anthology, Keys from the Golden Vault. So it's a bunch of adventures featuring heists and the like. I think that'll be pretty cool. Then there's Bigby Presents Glory of the Giants, which of course is the giant book that we've seen coming on the horizon, as one would with a giant book, seeing it come from far away, preparing our traps, laying the terrain so that we can attack the ankles of these giants. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. I think I'm really looking forward to that one. It's been a while since D&D has scratched beneath the surface of the lore with the elemental themed giants that they've got. And then it looks like in the summer of 2023, there'll be a Fandelver campaign, which they say is a full campaign and extension of the starter set, Fandelver, like 1 through 5, I think. It's a pretty enduring classic box set. And I think, like, of all the 5th edition adventures, it's probably the one I would consider the most iconic, even though I've never run it. I've read it, read things about it, heard people's experiences with it, but haven't had a chance to play it or run it myself. So maybe this is a good time to jump on board and, do a little retro gaming with classic of early era 5th edition. And then also next summer, it looks like there's the Book of Many Things, which is that Deck of Many Things book that I was predicting last week. This looks like another Xanathar's or Tasha's, a lot of DM and player options. So it looks like that, just ahead of a new edition that's going to be backwards compatible. That's pretty exciting. There might be some cool stuff in there that we can check out. All these UAs that we've been looking at recently, we'll see see what came of them. And then finally, hold on to your portal keys, because this time next year we'll probably be talking about what's coming up for Planescape, which sounds like it's going to be another boxed set. Maybe they're sort of talking about an all-in-one, everything you need for Sigil and Adventures in the Multiverse. And so I'm thinking maybe it's similar to Spelljammer, which I've only just now finished the first of the books of, so it's going to be a while before we talk about that. So Planescape next year, we'll see what that's like. What I'm hoping for is a more adventuresome Planescape, a Planescape that's a little less heady and a bit more, this is how you do an adventure here. So yeah, I'm really excited for that. There's a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipe. And we're lucky enough that today we have the first of the playtest documents where we can talk about character origins. So here we go. Let's see. Actually, you know what? Before we jump in, I'm going to check in with you guys, see how y'all are doing. Everybody in chat doing all right? Hanging out, living well, that kind of thing? I can't hear you. It's all right. I hope you're doing all well. I really do. Let's see. What do we got? We got some questions. Yeah. Gary asks, what are your thoughts on the removal of the term edition? I think it's fine. I mean, there's Dungeons and Dragons, right? Like, there's clearly differences between the different versions of D&D. But when I remember my games of Dungeons and Dragons, I don't first think of what edition it was. I think of the experience I had playing it. And across every edition of D&D, first level D&D feels the same. The same. You want the same numbers, generally speaking, to roll on your D20. May have more hit points than you're used to or less, but you still have too few. You could still get murked in one crit. So there's something through line across all editions of the game that it's one of the reasons I like playing 1974 edition of D&D, because I can see the beginning of that through line and sort of experiment with it in my home game. And so I think it's fine to just get, who cares? It's the version of Dungeons and Dragons in print, and that's how you can think of it. And it'll be that way till 6th edition. Who knows what the future will bring. Sambro asks, fearful or hopeful for Planescape 5e? I'm cautiously hopeful. I think that there's a lot of really cool stuff in Planescape. There was a lot of detail, a lot of interesting ideas, and some of them were buried in just the formatting of that era of D&D, and others of them were like, this is a really cool idea, but I don't know how to make this gameable. And I attempted 3 Planescape campaigns, when it was, you could buy it off the shelf and slightly after. And the only one of them that worked was a game where they didn't feature any of the stuff from Planescape. It was just set in the Outer Planes. And the faction stuff, the sigil, the portal keys, there seemed to be so much potential there. And for me, at least, I found it inaccessible. And I know others didn't have that experience, and so I always glom onto their, their accounts of how they ran their games. But for me, it was always man, this seems cool. I'd love to run this, as opposed to Dark Sun. Dark Sun is different. It's weird. they're doing all kinds of things. Like if the Dark Sun that they wanted to make, there'd be no elves, no halflings, no dwarves, nothing of that. But I know what to do with it. I know how to make an adventure in it. It's, the wallpaper is different, but the room's the same kind of thing. Whereas I walk into the room of Planescape and I'm like, what is going on here? Where am I supposed to sit? Anyway, we'll do one more for Hat, and then I'll stop teasing about this document. Do you think they should just add spells of varying types? Like there's Fireball, but there could be Ice Ball, Force Ball, etc., all with different effects. I think that we should embrace the specificity of spells, is what I think. And so, while I am able to sort of see the perspective of people who are like, yeah, if we just had like Elemental Ball or Elemental Sphere, but to me, that's taking more of the magic out that's already pretty thin on the ground to begin with. And so, what I want to see is those expressions of Ice Ball and Force Ball, etc., but iterated on, varied, do something different with them. And you can see the beginnings of that with like Cone of Cold, right? Fireball in the beginning like melts equipment. It backblasts. If there's not enough room for the sphere to expand, you can easily have it backdraft up the corridor and, half TPK your party or something like that. So you have to, it's a spell to use judiciously, not necessarily in every situation. Like there's a reason Lightning Bolt exists, and it's conveniently shaped to go down dungeon corridors. And then Cone of Cold comes along at 5th level, and it's a bigger range, doesn't destroy equipment, doesn't have a blowback if you don't use it in a big enough corridor. And so like something like that, consider what it is that Fireball's doing and the holes that you're seeing, and find some way to have a spell that works that, and it's not just like, yeah, it does one instance of this, make a dex save, it does this much d6, because I don't think you need a spell for that. I think you can just DM and a player can just go, yeah, that's fine. I know it's kind of, there's a, it takes 2 people to agree to it, so there is some element. Excuse me, my cat is about to, good grief. All right, if something comes crashing and the camera goes whatever, it's one of the kittens. No, anyway. Yeah, so that's sort of where I'm at with it, Hat King. I think something like Vitriolic Sphere or Storm Sphere would be what I'm thinking of. A little bit higher level, but it's the similar kind of expression of Fireball. Yeah. Or something. Call down a lightning elemental that dances around the battlefield for a little bit, something like that. All right, character origins. This has been out for 13 minutes now. Some of you may have already finished it. So this is a document. I'll share the screen with you guys. Share screen up. All right, so I'll get to it in a second. But right, this document has character races, backgrounds, starting languages, feats, and then a rules glossary. So what they're doing is like once a month, they're going to have basically just a UA that's a playtest document. This is the first one. We don't even get to classes yet. It's just this races and character backgrounds. Wow. Okay. So it's the starting languages, feats, rules glossary. Here we go. This playtest material. So we're determining your origin. All right. Let me take just a second here to figure out why. There it is. That's the one I was looking for. There we go. I was looking in the wrong place because it's, believe it or not, it's been a while since I used Zoom. So I'm looking right here. This is the determining your origin. So we're choosing this after your character's class. It's time to consider their origin. Who are the character's ancestors, and how did the characters spin the years leading up to a life of adventure? To help answer those questions, you choose 3 things for the character's race, the character's background, and language. All right, okay. So they're keeping the language of race in for, I think this is pretty, we've seen this coming for the UA. They haven't really changed it. But if you watch the video with Todd Kenrick and Jeremy Crawford that's on the, where you can download this document, like they have a sort of discussion where they're talking about this is your character's ancestry. This is their, this is who their parents were. And that they also have rules in the PHB for how to create a character that has two separate humanoid parents. They use the example of like a dwarf and a halfling. And so, like, I think that's really cool. I played in a campaign early on where the DM went through every possible pairing of, of the player's handbook race options. It was like, all right, here's their mechanical expression in case you ever want to play one. I forget, maybe one or two of us did. I kind of like that. I think that I think there's a conversation or something to be had around world building and what it is that a DM gets out of running a game and presenting a world to the players to have an adventure in, and then the players getting to make the character that they want expressed as they want. And like, there's really no right answer to it. It's always going to be a back and forth and give and take, because part of the fun of playing this game is making the kind of character that you want to play. And this is definitely the edition that focuses in on that. Fifth edition always has. I don't know the last time you guys read the opening pages of the PHB, but it's exactly this kind of focus. And so this is a refinement of it. I don't know, I think it's kind of cool. I think having a more narrative weight to your character's origin is always a good thing, because it gives the DM more to do with your players. All right. So this is the character's race represents ancestry and refers game traits to the character. The character's background is a collection of characteristics that represent the place and occupation that were most formative for the character. The character origin overview table lists the traits your character gains from race and background. All right, so you get a creature type. Every character and monster of the game has a creature type. Yep. Character size determines the amount of space the character occupies, as explained in the 2014 Player's Handbook. And then speed fuels the character's movement, as explained in the 2014 Handbook. Lifespan. This lifespan is an average for a member of the race, assuming the dangers of adventure don't shorten that span. I don't know. I think they'll be all right. Special traits. Each race provides special traits, a collection of abilities that characters gain from their ancestors. All right. And then, oh, hey, okay. So they're moving ability score increases to background instead of your character's race. So a background grants a +2 bonus to one ability score and a +1 bonus to a different one. So that's a change. And I think this is really like focused on what your character did before they were an adventurer shaped who they are. It shapes, the person that they are when they begin to seek that life of adventure and acquire their character class. Right. It's interesting that you're not choosing the character's origin first, though. That's weird, I guess. I don't know. Maybe this is just a first draft, maybe. So you can get 2 skill proficiencies from a background, so proficiency with 1 tool, 1 language from the background, and then each background provides a first level feat, a special ability acquired in the character's past. So first level feats, apparently all feats now are getting levels, and first level feats are feats that don't necessarily increase your character's raw power. They more add something versatile about them. It's a different kind of ability that they acquired, right, in the character's past, as opposed to something like Great Weapon Master or something, which is raw damage. It's just a pure damage boost. That sounds like something that'll be more like a 4th level feat or something. So feats have levels. This is all explained in the the video that accompanies the PDF. But feats have levels because they're looking at feats as class abilities that aren't tied to any one class. And so they're wanting them to be comparable to class abilities. And so class abilities have levels, feats have levels. But it also cuts down on like just analysis paralysis when you're selecting a feat, because you can look and go, well, I'm only going to look at the first level feats. I kind of like that. That seems intuitive. Having them tied to when you get ASIs, those are the levels that the feats have. I think it's kind of interesting because it's like, all right, so fighters and rogues get an ASI at 6th level, I think. And it's like, are there going to be 6th level feats just for them? Do they get to pick like an 8th level one? Or are they stuck with 4th level? I don't know. That could be interesting if there's like, this is a 6th level feat, but most people aren't going to get their second feat till 8th level. That could be kind of cool. A neat way to distinguish those two character classes from the other 10 that have magic and all kinds of things going on, show that they are, have some kind of training or edge. Let me neat. And then equipment, of course, background provides a portion of the character's starting equipment, with the rest coming from class. And apparently they reconciled and redistributed all the equipment packages so that they're worth the same amount of gold pieces, instead of some of them being worth vastly more than others. So yeah, I think that's kind of cool. Like, so there's basically, as I understand it, there's a build your own approach to backgrounds, but right now we're going to get into character races. All right, here we go. This is the good stuff here. When you choose your character's race, you determine whether your character is a member of the human race or of a fantastical race. This document provides descriptions and rules for the following race options: human, ardling, dragonborn, dwarf, elf, gnome, halfling, orc, and tiefling. All right. Okay. So ardling is a thing. I know what it is. I spoiled myself, but I'll wait till we get to it in the document. Is there no half orc, just regular orc? Just we got orcs. Finally. To me, like, once you start putting half orc in the player's handbook, you just might as well have orc, because you have elf and half elf. But again, we see where there's no half elf, there's no half orc. I think that's because they've got the option to create a, I've got two separate parents from any of the humanoid options, which I think is kind of cool. The description of each race includes a section of game traits, which your character gains if you select that race, et cetera, et cetera. So reminding us that they don't necessarily have the same traits as explained in the monster manual, which is a good clarification and qualifier. Here's that sidebar. Thanks to the magical workings of the multiverse, humanoids of different kinds sometimes have children together. For example, folks who have a human parent and an orc parent or an elf parent are particularly common. Many other combinations are possible. If you'd like to play the child of such a wondrous pairing, choose 2 race options that are humanoid to represent your parents. Then determine which of those race options provides your game traits: size, speed, and special traits. You can mix and match visual characteristics, color, ear shape, and the like of the 2 options. For example, if your character has a halfling and a gnome parent, you might choose halfling for your game traits, and then decide that your character has the same pointed ears that are the characteristic of a gnome. Finally, determine the average of the 2 options' lifespan traits to figure out how long your character might live. For example, a child of a halfling and a gnome has an average lifespan of 288 years. I'm wondering if they're getting rid of tags, like elf, orc, whatever. So, because it's like there's certain magic items, I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if tags are going away. But it's like, yeah, all right. I'm not going to try to just think quietly. I could have sworn that there were like some kind of magic item or maybe spell that was keyed to like the tag you would have, what kind of humanoid you were, essentially. Yeah, that's all right. Humans. All right. I am excited for this because human is such a tough to get right. I don't remember what I was talking about, where I was at when I went off on it. But it's like humans, everything that's unique about us, we take away and put into other fantasy races. Like, oh, elves are like this, or these gnomes are all good with animals, and dwarves are the craftiest of the crafters. Like everything that makes humans a unique animal. It's like we've cleaved from ourselves in the fantasy genre and given to a false creation. And then we wonder why humans are so bland and boring. So let's see what D&D is doing with humans. Found throughout the multiverse, humans are as varied as they are numerous. Nice. They are relatively short-lived, but they strive to achieve as much as they can in the years they are given. They are skilled pioneers and artisans. They're builders of nations, roads, cities, and ships. They strive to secure their place in the world and in the annals of history by creating art, amassing wealth, making laws, and questing for immortality. I think that that is a loaded statement. There are many villains and heroes included in there. Their ambition and resourcefulness are commended, respected, and feared. Humans are as diverse in appearance as the people of Earth, and they have many gods. All right, I like this. I always love when D&D references the real world. In many of my games, I enjoy considering the players as actual gods of this world that is a false creation. And one day, nothing will happen about it, but it's fun to think about as I'm going to sleep. Anyway, humans are as diverse in appearance as the people of Earth, and they have many gods. Scholars dispute the origin of humanity, but one of the earliest known human gatherings is said to have occurred in Sigil, the torus-shaped city at the center of the multiverse, and the place where the common tongue was born. From there, humans could have spread to every corner of the multiverse, bringing Sigil's call of positivism with them. That's kind of cool. All right, that's cool. Like that is a very specific, definitive statement, even if it is just like scholars dispute. That's fine, But even just the suggestion of it, I like. Giving something other than like everybody else gets their own origin story and patron god except humans. Where did we come from? We're just here because the people that made us are humans. Anyway, it's fine. I don't really think a lot about this as I'm falling asleep. Depends on what you mean by a lot. Human traits. Humanoid. Size, they can be medium or small. Finally. Seriously, this has bothered me for so long because it's like there are small humans. Right, like not just now, but throughout our evolutionary history, it always should have been this way. So that's very good. I like that. I hope we see more of it. We see the same for like tieflings, dragonborn. It's fine, and I like this. All right, speed of 30 feet, lifespan 80 years on average. I'll take some guidelines over nothing. Ooh, okay, wait, all right. As a human, you have these special traits: resourceful. You gain inspiration whenever you finish a long rest. All right. Okay. That's pretty cool. Skillful. You gain proficiency in one skill of your choice. And versatile. You gain the skilled feat or another first level feat of your choice. Right, assuming skilled stays the same. So you potentially get up to 4 skill proficiencies from your humanness. Humans of many worlds. On any given world in the multiverse, the material culture of humans can change from one region to another. In the Forgotten Realms, for example, the clothing, architecture, cuisine, music, and literature are wildly different in the Western Heartlands than in the frozen north of Icewind Dale. It's okay. Some things are sticking out to me here. Lots of mentions of the multiverse. Like D&D is leaning hard into this. And I can see why. They've got 2 settings coming out where one of them's already out. One of them will be out next year, about how to link the various material worlds and planes of the D&D multiverse, how to traverse them, how to have adventures, while you're on that journey, or what to do when you get there. And so, like, I could see how they would want to bake that in from the beginning, because what I found weird about playing during the era of D&D when like Planescape and Spelljammer were around was that it seemed like, wait a minute, like these are settings that are included. Why aren't we using these books too? Like if I can hop on a ship that can fly and travel to another world, like that seems kind of cool. Can we do that? But the rules and the settings and everything weren't like built. They didn't have that assumption built in. It wasn't, part of the basic rules of the game. And like 5th edition is hinting at it already in the player's handbook. They mention all kinds of worlds your characters could come from. Use real world gods from all kinds of historical religions. They're mixing and matching Eberron and Dawn War and Forgotten Realms, and so it's like they're using all kinds of examples already. This is just a step further. I really like that, because if this is going to work, this multiverse thing is going to work, it has to be built in from the beginning that the D&D world is a multiverse. Like you might be playing in one campaign world, but it is connected to these others, and I really dig that. I'm liking this thing with humans here. I was curious to see what they were doing once everybody's getting the first little feat, and I think it's pretty cool. All right, I'm gonna answer a couple questions and we'll get to it. Jesus, only 3:30. Wow, we still got plenty of time. He says it's at least the third page of the PDF. All right. I take my time. All right. Here we go. Wesiman. You want skill checks to change from flat proficiency to some skills to a more granular system. Like when you take a new level, you gain 2 skill points. You can add to any skill. I never want to go back to adding any kind of skill point. I just that to me, that level of specificity, I just am past that point in my life. More power to those who enjoy it. What I'd like to see is the ability to retrain proficiencies. I'd like to see more done with half proficiency, even though, that's obviously progressing very slowly. It could still be useful in some respects. Something that's more granular. I don't know that I want something that's more granular. I think I would like something that provides more guidelines for like, how long does a certain skill check of a certain type take? Like in the new Astral Adventuring, one of the new books for the Spelljammer campaign setting, it's like 2 people on a Spelljammer with 2 helms, 2 potential sources of control for that Spelljammer can engage in a Spelljammer duel. And it's like they're rolling opposed constitution checks against one another. But there's no sense of time scale to it. Like, how long does this take? Is this something that's like they do on their turn in a round of combat, or is this something that's instantaneous and it's over with? Like it gives me the mechanic to use to resolve it, but not the narrative framework to make a scene out of it. And that's what I want for proficiency checks. Like, it's okay with me that there's no one way to pick a lock in 5e. There's a lot of different ways depending on your DM. That's a strength. I like that. But I'd like to know how long it takes, regardless of if I'm using thieves' tools, sleight of hand, a dexterity check, whatever. I'd like to know how long it takes. Something like that. That helps me frame a scene. So that's what I'd prefer to see with proficiencies. But yeah, there you go. Hat King's got another question. You think they should add formal rules for the other pillars like exploration and social encounters? Not necessarily. I think that, first off, there's already formal rules for the more debilitating parts of wilderness survival that you might encounter in some parts of exploration pillar. I mean, D&D defines exploration pillar so broadly, it's really hard to talk about because it's a lot of different things under that particular pillar. And there's already rules for social encounters, but much like the other proficiency checks, there's no sense of like, okay, all right, so I got to roll a 20 to convince this indifferent NPC to do whatever. But like, how long should that take? How many times can I get to retry? All of these questions it depends, but it'd be nice to have some concrete guidelines for like a stubborn NPC. You get one try. A generous NPC or an NPC that's willing to listen, you might get 3. Something to just prevent endless rerolls, something to give DMs a bit more to fall back on. Like, oh, I got a crit and I get whatever I want. No. It's there. There's already some of that there in the DMG, but presenting it differently, moving it to a more central and prominent location within the rule book, and then calling out to it in the PHB as saying your DM has rules for how this interacts with NPCs and the like, would be good. And as an aside, I had to stop my players from trying to roll charisma checks against each other a few sessions ago because one of them acquired a particularly interesting item just offhand. Like, I collect some of this goo, and then by the end of the session, everybody wanted the goo and there wasn't any more. So like, I tried to roll persuasion and I was like, none of that. None of that. Keep those dice on the table. Ian's asking, opinion on keeping bonus actions. Get rid of them. To me, the things that I would want to use a bonus action for, those things can be written so that it's like as part of X action or in addition to whatever, like you can say that this is what you're doing. Like I'm thinking of something like spell like Hunter's Mark. Hunter's Mark could be written in such a way, whether it's a spell or an ability of the ranger, that as part of an attack, cast this spell. You know, you're using up the spell slot. You already got your action. You know, to me, I'd rather see them. I'd rather see them gotten rid of. And I honestly, I like you move and do a thing. That's the simplest way I've ever. Everybody's like, I just go Pathfinder 2. It's like, no, you got 3 things you can do. I'm telling you, you got it. Like play with new players. Just explaining, you can move 30 feet. That's 6 of these squares and do a thing. This is one of the things you can make an attack. You can cast a spell. You can interact with an object. You can use an object. You know, pick it out, take it out of your pack, and do something with it. A thing. Introducing any more than that gets really complicated. And I like veteran players like it. I get it. But for a lot of players, even like those who are not like this their first game, yeah, it can be a hindrance. And to me, it slows down play. Like if everybody can move and do a thing, game moves a bit faster. I like reactions, so I'd keep reactions, but I'd get rid of bonus action. Yeah. And then I'll do one more and I'll get back. I want to get to the Ardling at the very least. Maybe Elf. Ooh, will we get to Elf? I don't know. Dragonborn's in the way. Dwarf too. All right. DC 93. Do you guys think we are looking at Player's Handbook 2, Player's Handbook 2nd edition, with formatting changes, updated language, and the like? I just think it's going to be called the Player's Handbook. I don't think it's going to be a 2 or anything to indicate that this isn't just the new version of the Player's Handbook for 5th edition. Like it's obviously going to have enough substantial changes that they need to differentiate it from the current Player's Handbook. But my gut instinct says they're going to do everything they can to just make that transition as smooth as possible, because what their research found, and I remember this from the D&D Next, like some of the research for it was like, when you call something a Player's Handbook 2, a new player might be like, well, I don't want to get, like, I want to get the latest version, right? I want to get the whatever, what's the newest one, you know? And so you might need the Player's Handbook 1, because that's got the basic information of the game, how to play it, all the core stuff. They're over here with the Player's Handbook 2. I'm like, well, so I don't know. I just don't, to me, I think they're just going to be called the Player's Handbook. Revised, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just, that's off the top of my head. All right. Here we go. I'm sure you guys have read all of this already, but Ardling. So Ardlings, we're getting a new Aasimar. So here's my thinking on this. Monsters of the Multiverse just comes out. It's got the Aasimar in it, right? They're redoing the Tiefling here to represent the triple split of the lower planes, right? The lawful aligned lower planes, the neutral aligned lower planes, and the chaotic aligned lower planes. So they need a counterpart, right? I would like this is another one of those. Why isn't this in the core? Tieflings are going to be in the core. Some sort of a celestial influenced or celestial origin player option ought to be available. And so this is the Ardling, and they are invoking the Gardenals, Hound Archons, the various animal-headed D&Ds of the D&D multiverse and our own world, here. And so they are supernatural beings who are either born on the upper planes or have one or more ancestors who originated there. And so they are the celestial themed character option. So I guess they're going to exist alongside Aasimar. Here we have exalted, heavenly, and idyllic. So these are exalted, connecting with the fiery passions of Arborea, the heroic heart of Isgard, or the wondrous nature of the Beastlands. So they're chaotic good, what they're what they're. So look, all right, here's alignment, right? Everybody was worried about alignment. We still got alignment, right? So at least in terms of the planes, which is honestly where alignment belongs, in the supernatural, the supernatural planes of the outer realms. That's where it is. Heavenly, the blissful harmony of Arcadia, the unwavering justice of Mount Celestia, and bucolic paradise of Betopia touch the souls of Ardlings who have the heavenly celestial trait or legacy. So these are from lawful good planes. And it looks like idyllic would be neutral good there. From not only the Beastlands of Metopia, but also Elysium. Elysium, where it's so great, your characters may never want to leave. Never send your characters to Elysium. Like, no thanks. I'll leave. I'll save heaven for the end. I don't want to spoil myself. All right. Ardlings, they're humanoid. They can be medium or small. Live about 200 years on average, speed of 30 feet. They have the same sort of flight that I think that, what was it, Glitchling has. But oh no, my dreams and hopes are dashed as a bonus action. Oh, you hate to see it. All right. I could have read this before I answered. As a bonus action, you sprout spectral wings for a moment and fly up to a number of feet equal to your speed. If you're in the air at the end of this movement, you fall. If nothing is holding you aloft, and then you get this proficiency bonus per long rest. Yay! This is going to really get to me, and I don't know why, because this is basically the way it's been for all of D&D. Like every other edition, you get a certain number of these per day. The difference is now it's all tied to your proficiency bonus instead of just whatever the developers decided for this particular ability. So you'd have individual uses per day of every little feature or spell or ability that you'd have. So at least they're unifying it. This is my personal play style is I don't like a lot of buttons to push on my character sheet. I like a lot of passive abilities, things that just reflect who my character is and not like what they can do, because what they can do is a consequence of the choices that I make. I don't want a bunch of stuff in the way of that for me. But I understand that I'm not, there's a considerable number of players who like to have buttons to push. So more power to them. There's some cool Celestial Legacy, suggested animals here, a couple of spells that you get at first, third, and fifth level. I just think it's weird when your character's race levels up. To me, levels are for class features. I think like who your character is, what their legacy, their ancestry are, like that should just be. But again, it's something that seems to have stuck around, and it makes sense. Like from a mechanical perspective, I can see why. It's kind of a lot to have, say, Drow with all of their many spell-like abilities. Just all of that at first level. We don't want effective character levels or whatever it was they did in third edition to account for that. So we're stuck with this, and that's all right. We'll live. It'll be all right. So yeah, basically this paragraph here is explaining what you get here. The Celestial Legacy is giving you Thaumaturgy, Divine Favor, Less Restoration. It's kind of cool. Light, Cure Wounds, Zone of Truth. Ooh, do not like Zone of Truth. Guidance, Healing Word. Yes. Animal Messenger. And then it looks like you get a cantrip. And my guess is that you're using these once. Then you can either use a spell slot. You got to wait till you finish that long rest. So yeah, there you go. Resistance to radiant damage. Ardlings of many worlds. Ardlings bring a little bit of the upper planes with them wherever they go. On many worlds, the first Ardlings used the magic of their celestial legacies to inspire and heal others. By virtue of their celestial legacies, some Ardlings strive to make the world a better place. Others use their supernatural gifts to be the best version of themselves they can be. Still others are delighted to have a connection to the upper planes without the responsibility of always having to do the right thing. I really like these sort of little descriptions as opposed to like usually lawful good or neutral good or whatever. Like for me, alignment works best when it's an alignment with a cosmic force and not necessarily reflective of moral outlook, which can be messy and change, And so I really like a descriptive, this is what they're like. This is how they see themselves. Sometimes they're like this. Sometimes they're like that. To give the players an idea, a springboard, so the player can go, all right, I pick this one. That's me. I'm that player. And then other players can go, oh, I don't know about this. I want to change this up, make something unique to myself. I'll get there eventually, but I like to do it while I'm playing as opposed to before I've played. So yeah, I really like having the suggestions. I really like having something to build on, some kind of fluff to go at the crunch. And so it's kind of neat to see how they're doing it without relying on alignment as something that describes your character while still keeping alignment as an idea, which is, again, just, it's like more fifth edition than, it's like fifth edition made more itself, turning it all itself up. All right, how are you guys doing? That's right. Yeah, alignment has needed adjustment for all. It sure has. It's just, it's poorly explained. It's never really been explained well. It's just one of those things. It's useful, though. I don't think getting rid of it entirely is the idea. I use it all the time for NPCs because it's useful for me as a DM. So like, oh, they're neutral, lawful neutral. All right, that I can riff off that. So, all right. Dragonborn. Let's see if they fix Dragonborn. The earliest Dragonborn hatched from the eggs of chromatic and metallic dragons. One story holds that these eggs were blessed by the dragon gods Bahamut and Tiamat, who wanted to populate the worlds of dragons with people created in their image. Another story holds that dragons created the first Dragonborn without the gods' blessings. Whatever their origin, Dragonborn have made homes for themselves on the worlds of the material plane. Dragonborn look like wingless bipedal dragons, scaly, bright-eyed, and thick-boned, with horns on their heads. Dragonborn of chromatic ancestry have scales that are black, blue, green, red, or white, whereas Dragonborn of metallic ancestry have scales that are the color of brass, bronze, copper, gold, or silver. When two Dragonborn whose scales are of different colors produce a child, their offspring scales match those of one parent or the other. Like their draconic ancestors, Dragonborn can exhale acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison. One can tell the type of energy a Dragonborn breathes by the color of the Dragonborn scales. All right, so if you know your dragons, you know your Dragonborn. We get the draconic ancestry here. So Dragonborn are not, they cannot be small. They're only medium. I was hoping to be small because then that'd be another point in favor of kobolds being their draconic ancestry claims. But alas, kobolds shall not be. Dragonborn get draconic ancestry, which is, I think, what you would expect. This is the damage type that they breathe with their breath weapon, and then the one that they also have damage resistance to. And I don't know that I don't know how many Dragonborn that I've seen. One thing is, I'm not sure that I've seen many metallic Dragonborn. That is something I might have to change with my next character. All right. So breath weapon. As an action, you exhale destructive energy in a 15-foot cone. Each creature in that area must make a dexterity saving throw equal to 8 plus your con mod plus your proficiency bonus. On a failed save, a creature takes 10 plus your character level and damage of the type determined by your draconic ancestry trait. On a successful save, a creature takes half as much damage. You can use this breath weapon a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. You regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So I was hoping that if we're going to keep bonus actions, we could make breath weapon a bonus action, or at the very least some kind of language that says you can use this as an attack as part when making an attack action, right? In the same way that some classes can cast cantrips as part of an attack. And so that's really what I was hoping to see, so that you could have some incentive to like use this and other, like something else, because to me, past first or second level, I don't know that I would be relying on breath weapon too much, because like there's a lot I could do with my action, right? And the higher level I am, the more valuable my action becomes. And so like I could really see that like after tier 1 especially, that this just doesn't get used that much anymore. And so I don't know, that's a shame. Maybe there's some way to boost it that I haven't seen yet, or some other way to increase that. But when I think of something like Dragonborn, the breath weapon is really the only thing I want. Like I seriously would be fine with, like, they look like a dragon and they breathe their breath weapon, and I want it to be a core part of what I do. Right? I'm a Dragonborn fighter. There's all kinds of breath going on, breathing everywhere all the time. And so the mechanical expression of that idea I find lacking, and that's a shame, but also not surprising. But all right, I'm not going to dwell on it. So damage resistance, that's what you think. Dark vision, hey now, get some dark vision, upgrade one of the Dragonborn, and the Draconic language, of course. Dragonborn in big worlds. Like dragons, Dragonborn have a mystical bond to the material plane and are spread across its many worlds. On some worlds, the earliest Dragonborn settlements were built near dragon lairs so that the Dragonborn could pay tribute to their draconic progenitors. Many of these ancient settlements still exist. For example, the dragon-ruled continent of Argonessen on the world of Eberron has Dragonborn cities tucked among its mountain ranges. On other worlds, Dragonborn ply their skills in settlements populated mostly by non-Dragonborn, fulfilling an urge to expand their presence and influence, much as dragons do. I'd like to call the classes, call attention to mystical bond, because this has showed up in twice now in the character's options of Spelljammer, where something is described as mystical. And I don't know that I've seen mystical used in this way in 5th edition. You might have seen it usually expressed as magical, right? You have a magical this, a magical that. And there's a lot of question about like, okay, it's magical. Does that mean it works in an anti-magic sphere or not? Can it be, can something that's magical be dispelled with dispel magic? And I think they might be introducing language that further creates a divide between what counts as magic in the rules sense for the interaction with spells and class abilities and the like that protect against magic or, mess with magic in some way, and the background magic that they talk about all the time as being part of the inherent story and narrative of a lot of the mechanics and right. So like if you watch a lot of the videos with Crawford, you've always talking about the background magic, not background radiation, background magic of D&D. And that's my guess, is that this mystical is what that represents. Because it as just like writing rules for 5e, there's all kinds of like, okay, well, you just introduced something that might work weird with all kinds of spells and magical abilities. Let's think this through real quick. So mystical, that's, I don't know, that's the kind of thing I notice. All right. But I also think it's cool that they're mentioning Eberron. So we've had a mention of Forgotten Realms, we've had a mention of Eberron, Sigil. The settings of D&D are certainly more prominent now, I think, than they were in the first PHP, which has a lot of references to like real world religions and the like too, especially with the humans. And then a lot of just like Faerun specific stuff. Like Faerun is definitely the default on the Forgotten Realms. So yeah, I think I'm going to answer a couple more questions, see what you guys are up to. And let's see. All right, Samro says, do you plan to combine Planebreaker and 5e Planescape or keep them separate when you get both? I probably will mash them up. I like mashups. I like doing my own thing. So whatever they got cooking over the Planebreaker, I'll find a way to make it work. We'll aim that sucker at Sigil, see what happens. Yeah, that's how I'd use it. Either like their demi-planes or like this thing's crashing through a bunch of material planes. Like I think that they will be thematically compatible, and certainly there'll be enough interesting ideas in them that'll be a fruitful mashup. So yeah, I don't like keeping things separate because I don't I never know when I'm going to get to revisit an idea again or a certain setup or something, right? How many Planescape campaigns am I going to run? And so if I get one off the ground, I'm going to use every good idea I have in that one. And then if there's a second one, I'll just have to find more good ideas. I'm sure there's plenty. So yeah, let's see. Michael Simons asks, do you think based on how they word everything, that this is a true 5.5e or more like a consolidation of rules amendments and changes they've made throughout the years? I think it really is more like a consolidation and a rules update. I think they're taking some of like just the little things that have developed over the years, like the proficiency bonus per long rest. right? Like I think it's been just shown anecdotally and through surveys and all kinds of things that the encounter math of what the basic rules of the game expect you to experience, like how many encounters per day, when you're going to get a short rest, how often is that going to happen? Like all of those assumptions create real problems for some of the classes. And I've played in groups and I've been DM for groups where it's like, I don't remember the last time we get a short rest. When you're like Warlock, you got like how many spell slots? Like this, that seems really low. And yet if you're getting a short rest whenever you wanted, that would be more spell slots than you knew what to do with. And the same with like fighter and monk. And I think the disparity between when classes refresh their abilities, it drives a lot of this. And if they're trying to get the play experience a bit more even, give, present a set of rules that more matches how people play the game, which is maybe there's a couple of combats per adventuring day, and then there might be 3 or 4 adventuring days where there's no combat at all, as opposed to what seems like this very fast paced all day, every time you're adventuring, it's just combat. And if there's anything I hope that they do, the kind of changes that they make, it's to move away a bit from combat as being so central, and in more just it's a thing you do, and it's pretty rules intensive, it's fun in and of itself, but it's not the only thing going on. See, I really do like watch the video announcement. They're very like, I don't think they want to call this an edition at all. I think they'd love to just be like, this is D&D. There's no differentiation. The one you buy on the shelf, that's Dungeons and Dragons. And sure, I would too, if it were me. Let's see. Black Gesso asks, much the standardization of the rules seems to me like an effort to simplify the D&D Beyond code base. Will this turn to rules as software simplify? Will this turn to rules as software simplify or complicate things at the table? I don't know. I play with players who they have players handbooks open and phones on D&D Beyond, and it seems to run pretty smoothly. Not too many complications or the like. I really like D&D Beyond. I as it's grown as a website and a service, it's gotten more and more useful. I really can't imagine playing 5e without it. And like it's, I visit it all the time, like every day, all the time, because it's the ability to sort all of the vast amount of information that's in the game. I want to see certain spells that have this type of feature. I want monsters that have a movement speed of, swim movement speed and this kind of damage resistance, right? Just the ability to sort through all of that information and have it easily at hand is just a tremendous tool for prep for, all kinds of things. And even at the table, just like quickly pulling up the monster, on your phone and just running it straight from that is a lot easier than holding a big book or flipping pages and the like. So I think that digital tools is something D&D has been trying to, develop and make a core part of the D&D experience for many editions before Wizards of the Coast got their hands on D&D, and they tried with 3rd and 4th, and, D&D Beyond has been doing it. They got the merger. They're going to start offering physical and digital bundles. I believe the new Dragonlance book that's coming up at the end of the year, The Shadow of the Dragon Queen. You get a digital code that you can go on D&D Beyond for. And that's something people have been asking for a long time. So I think that there's got to be an influence there, right? Like the Wizards of the Coast is a publicly traded company, and they're got to turn a profit and all that other stuff, right? We all know the drill. And D&D Beyond's a good service. Merging the two, making use of service that's already there. And I'm now just sort of thinking off the top of my head of previous attempts at this. Like when I think of 4th edition and 3rd edition's attempt to provide digital tools and even like you can play D&D online kind of service, the ability to like create that software and develop it and present it, it just seems so much more limited than it is now. And so this is one of those things that's like, yeah, I really like digital tools. It makes so many things about this game so much more manageable. I'd like to see it, and it's undoubtedly going to influence the rules in some way, even just like presentation or and the like. So yeah, I'm hoping it simplifies things. It could also complicate it. It's if being able to sort through the information, if it makes it easier, it might be easier to just pile on the options, and you have all kinds of feats and spells and character subclasses and all kinds of things that could lead to power creep and bloat and the like. But I don't know if that's going to happen. Yeah. So simplify. Final answer. All right. This is a meaty document, 21 pages. Not going to get through it all, of course, but we'll stop at dwarf. We've got to look at some of them. Kind of like what's going on. Like the presentation of it. It's simplified, evocative, interesting stuff going on. There's new ideas, but it's familiar. It's not too far from what I think of as D&D. And D&D, what is D&D? What isn't D&D? It's very nebulous and changes all kinds of things. So I'm excited. They got another one of these coming out once a month. Apparently the feedback survey for this one drops on the 1st of September. So yeah, they want the feedback. They see the feedback process from D&D Next as helping to create this game that has made D&D more popular than it has ever been. And they want the fan base to shape how the rules go. So now is your chance. And whether they listen, whether your preference is reflected in the rules that we get in 2024, I don't know, but this is it. This is the chance to make that preference known. But yeah, I like what I'm seeing. Of course, there's all kinds of ways it'd be different if it was exactly what I wanted, but it's refinement of 5e. And I think that's really the way to go here in terms of making something that's going to be, it's going to stick around, and that is going to, make sure that D&D is still a presence in the geek world and not relegated to the shadowy corners of playing under the bleachers and having to go find books, smelly game stores. Long live D&D's popularity so that we can have wonderful places to play it and a large pool of players to draw into our own games and get them hooked on our specific kind of D&D that we like. So yeah, taking a little break, a little vacation next week. So won't be here next week. We'll be here the week after, either talking about this or Spelljammer, the new starter set. I don't know, who knows what we'll be talking about. Revisiting the fighter, I'm not sure, but we will be back in 2 weeks with more D&D, more talk about D&D. Until then, see you later.